this is a very rare knowledge, very little known in Hinduism, and to the matter extent, very, very few spiritual teachers know this. Very, very few. So awareness is the consciousness of Lord Brahma. It's called Brahma Jyoti. And Krishna people have figured out that most of the non-dual teachers, they attain this state of consciousness, the awareness or the blissful consciousness of Lord Brahma, Brahma Jyoti. But a few spiritual traditions, only a few in the world, know that there are higher realms of existence beyond that. So beyond Brahmanda universes and beyond the awareness Brahma Jyoti, there are 700 quadrillion Par Brahmanda universes.
Welcome, modern day mystics, fellow truth seekers, James and Justin back again. And today we have another special guest with us. We have Sat Mindo Dev. Now, he is an online spiritual teacher, author, and founder of Divine Marga, which focuses on God realization, soul liberation, and divine living.
Yep, this is a very peaceful, blissful, graceful teacher.
Yeah.
So you should have some very interesting wisdom to share with everybody.
All right, guys, we won't keep you waiting. Let's get into it. All right, Sat Mindo, thank you so much for being on the channel. It's so good to have you, for giving us your time. I know we've done a little bit of an intro for you, but I think it's always best with our guests that they have kind of like an opening say to tell our audience a little bit about themselves and what they got going on. So I'll open the floor to you and we can all get to know you a little bit better.
Well, hello, namaste, satnam. So we have an organization called Divine Marga. And also we have a foundation, New Humanity Foundation, which is established in the Maltese Islands in Europe and also in the United States. So our main focus is soul liberation, the true soul liberation. We also look at divine cosmology and the levels of consciousness to have clarity about the spiritual journey, the spiritual path, and more precisely where one is on their path. It's like a map, like a GPS, a guidance system. And my first book covers this topic in depth about the enlightened authentic self and the levels of consciousness. Also clarifying a lot of spiritual confusions, misconceptions, and what does it really mean to be authentic self in what we call in full consciousness. So over the last nearly 15 years, we had a lot of students, and our students progress very rapidly and very also in a very integrated way along the spiritual path. And we get a lot of students from many other teachers who come to us because they seek clarity, because they have been already to many teachers, they participated in their Sangha community, whether it's Europe, the United States, or India, or anywhere else, actually. And then they still come with this question, so where exactly they are on their spiritual path? and they want to get this clarity and how to move to the next step, because they know there's more, but how exactly to get there. So my first book covers that in detail, and my second book is which is about to be released in about a month or two. It's being
Hey,
finalized now. Yes, so maybe by the time you will see this interview, it will already be published. It will be about soul liberation and divine cosmology, which goes into a greater depth about spiritual paths, spiritual traditions, and spiritual teachers, and from which domain they are addressing, from which domain they're speaking or teaching, and how does that relate to the soul liberation path, clearing of karma. What is the true soul liberation? So this is a very brief introduction of what we do at Divine Marga.
I'm fascinated as how you kind of got into this field. Was this something that you grew up into, or did this fall into your life path somewhere along the line?
Well, in about 15 years before my physical incarnation, I have a clear memory how I was planning my descent here.
Whoa.
And I chose very precise timing, precise location that has shaped my path of awakening. So, a long story short, the the biggest moment happened when I was living in New Zealand at that time, and that was in 2009, around that period of time. And I was residing at a very sacred home, and hosted by a family who this woman actually was training priests, young priests in New Zealand, in Wellington. And I was residing in their home at the top of the mountain in Wellington, and I was already doing my spiritual practice for quite a while. And that's where a very rare event took place of a very rare awakening, where I went above my body and I witnessed my body being transformed cell by cell, atom by atom, into light particles. And when I came back into the body after an hour and a half, um, everything was awakened. All energy centers. It's not a common Kundalini or chakra awakening, because right away all my senses became clear and vivid. Right away I could see things very clearly. All extrasensory perceptions opened up. A lot of psychic abilities opened up in that moment. And this, I realized that this wasn't new to me. And a voice within me said that you are awareness right away. And at that time in my mind, it didn't make sense, okay, well, awareness, but right then I was seeing all interdimensional things. So what happened then is that I went to live in Auckland, and I attended one gathering event of spiritual, a conference actually. It was about the upcoming 2012 awakening. And there came a man, and he looked at me and he said, he asked a few questions and he said, "Would you like to meet for dinner?" And I said, well, I felt something very positive from him, very loving. And I said, yes, why not? And when we met for this dinner, he instantly started reading my past lives, our past lives, with him and with others. And I got to know that he is one of the most famous New Zealand spiritual teachers. And we became friends. He introduced me to other teachers in New Zealand who have their own communities, who have written many books, who have done everything. And about a year later, my friend, he organized an art exhibition in New Zealand in a very beautiful art gallery where he presented his paintings, like maybe 1.5 meters, nearly full body size paintings of ascended masters. And it was a whole exhibition of all these ascended masters and higher beings in great, great detail that he painted. And there was a very big, beautiful attendance from all of the spiritual community in New Zealand to admire it. So this was my awakening, reawakening, I call it. It's not new, it was reawakening time. And later on, I intuitively was guided to move and live in the Maltese Islands, which are in the middle of Mediterranean. And this is where I started teaching more publicly, as in groups. Before it was more individual, then it became more into groups. And a lot of people started coming, asking questions. And so that was the beginning, we may say. And as I was progressing through these steps of levels of consciousness, I was taking my time to fully familiarize with each major step. And later I realized why, because then so that I would be able to guide others, not skipping anything, not jumping ahead. And then, so this allowed me to gain detailed clarity of each of the steps so that I could then help others with their journey.
Wow.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
It's an amazing story. Do you have any questions off the bat?
I have lots of questions. I don't want to hog them all, though.
So do I. I guess kind of an obvious one. It might be sort of a simpleton's question, but your identity over the years. There's, to be sort of like frank, I suppose, people that have had spiritual awakenings and consciousness transformations, the identity they seem to inhabit is one of blissfulness and peace and a chilled out nature. Did your identity change when this happened? Was there a you that was away beforehand? And what do you happen to think about people that, like I convey oftentimes on this channel, a very frantic nature, and I'll go into rants and display anger sometimes and frustration while I'm philosophizing. Was there an identity change in you, and can you speak about that at all? Identity and what that has to do with consciousness?
Yes, of course. Well, this is the topic of the levels of consciousness and what identity shifts occur at each of the major steps. So before the spiritual awakening, the identity is the knower. Even lower degrees, I'm the physical body only. So, going to the gym and portraying all their physical aspects to everyone, representing their identity. But generally, people identify with the knower, with the knowledge that they have accumulated. Yeah. When the spiritual awakening happens, there is the inner light that shines through. And suddenly one realizes that I'm no longer this physical body. And I don't really die when this body dies. So this commonly can go into the astral planes, out of body experiences, um, and maybe near-death experiences in the more severe cases, where people realize that they don't really die, that there is something within them that lasts much more than the physical vehicle. Now, with the inner light awakening, one becomes spiritually oriented and starts to figure things out and gathering the spiritual knowledge. And that matures into the higher self, or we call it also the inner wisdom, the spiritual wisdom, or the highest self vehicle of consciousness. And usually at this stage, one is connected with their intuitive self, their inner spiritual self, and can receive this spiritual knowledge from within now and doesn't need so much to look outside for the answers. But that creates an obstacle, because if a person doesn't move to a higher stage of consciousness, they get stuck by accumulating more and more spiritual knowledge. And basically, their energy field gets crudified in the mental center.
Mm-hmm.
Now, to overcome that, there is a second major spiritual awakening, which is the inner love awakening, where there is a shift from the spiritual mental center into the spiritual heart center. And therefore, the ultimate answer that the mind can receive is love. And the mind starts to surrender to the heart. It softens, it surrenders. So then the identity shifts into love. And this is where our tens of millions of people who made to this second stage of spiritual awakening, to the inner love awakening. When the heart expands more and more, this is already a heartful 5D consciousness, heavenly. We call it the spiritual honeymoon, because at that stage, people want to go and hug everybody, say, I love you. And they're so loving.
Annoy the hell out of everybody.
Yes. So you probably know a few people like that. If
Not really, no.
Or maybe the one who is watching is like that already, which is beautiful.
Yeah, that sounds so beautiful.
Yes, because this is the spiritual honeymoon. You've awakened, and now you took the second great step, and this huge ocean of love opens up, which is really, really magnificent and beautiful.
Do people hold that back? Sorry, I just want to interject one question, because I got a lot, but I don't want to lose it. Are there people that have that love thing that actually hold it back? Like, could you be encountering someone that's like this close to hugging you, but they're literally like, I see that that's not appropriate, so I'm going to restrain my radiant love?
We typically suggest a 10% rule, whereby when you meet somebody new, or your old friend, which you haven't seen for 5-10 years, and you underwent through this amazing spiritual journey, but they haven't yet. So not to scare them off, we
taper it down.
And not to cause trouble, to anybody else, we suggest 10% rule, where you hint about your new awakening or realizations. You say, oh, I've been doing meditation for the last few years. And then you see the feedback of the other person, how they're receiving this. And if they're open, you can give another 10%. But if they suddenly shut down and they don't want to hear it, well, you will be wasting your time and possibly even damaging the
It's not loving anymore to just grab them and hug them when they don't want to be in a love fest. And I'll just say one more question. I guess I'll turn it over to you, just to like shift it back into the realm of the guy that's obsessed with knowing things. just to go back down there for 1 sec. So the question is then, I suppose, even after the love explosion was, which you illustrated very beautifully, you know, and I take that seriously because I think you can get lost in philosophy and knowing and stuff like that. It's good to tap into the heart. But for you yourself, does your identity ever shift? Do you ever get held up at the airport and you're like, time to turn on like frustrated arguing guy? You know, like, does that ever happen for you, or you're like, you know, when you get awakened, you don't find yourself in those circumstances anymore? Like, what's the deal? Are you able to oscillate back to somebody that, if you encountered something malicious, you could like shift character into something that would suit that?
Okay, so we haven't yet covered the presence consciousness, what that truly is, and how identity shifts. Then there is the non-dual consciousness. And then there are 4 stages of enlightenment until you reach what we call full consciousness. And we have quite a beautiful group of people who have reached that stage. So the third main spiritual awakening, and this is where I will answer about the identity shifts, because I went through all of them and guided many, many people to go through these steps. So as love expands, it becomes unity or oneness consciousness. Then you tap into the whole planetary sphere. This is the shamanic culture, traditionally, like as the best example of this consciousness. So that's where also are quite a few million people in this oneness, unity consciousness. But then the third stage of awakening is presence, and this is difficult. This is a 180 degrees shift from all energies, chakras, kundalini, all of it. Now, none of these practices will work in presence. And that's why it is so difficult. And today there's less than 50,000 people on Earth who are in a true presence consciousness. And that translates, if we take a jnana yoga tradition, it translates into the fundamental beingness, which is no longer a doer. So you are the being, no longer a doer. This is a big shift in identity, because you're no longer identifying with the energies, with the energy you hold, with none of the energetic experiences. And you literally become the context for the content. You're no longer the energetic light body, or you're no longer the highest self. You are no longer needed to manage your chakras. So you shift your identity into the beingness, and that becomes a cosmic consciousness. So this is where traditionally yogis attain that stage in India, and those who practice Advaita Vedanta, non-duality. We have over 100 people in our community who have attained this stage or higher.
Oh, wow. Because I was almost getting like a Neem Karoli Baba vibe when you were describing. I don't know if you're probably aware of who that is, but he
Yes,
was like
of course.
so transcendent that people would be like, that guy could teleport. You know what I mean? Is what people claim.
Yes, we have visited his ashram where his remains are in India.
And is it still to hold like an energetic charge or something? Is it?
Oh yes, oh yes, oh yes. Actually, one of my students is there right now. He just went there 2 days ago. He's right there with Neem Karoli.
So there's like a premium on being in the presence of this stuff, it seems. You know,
Neem
like...
Karoli Baba is way more than that. His consciousness is way more. We might go today in a discussion about spiritual teachers. This would be a good conversation, and to see where they are, you know. So let me wrap up the topic of identity shift, and maybe then we cover this one.
Yeah.
So then a person shifts as the person matures into the I am, into fundamental knowing that I exist and I'm no longer the doer. then this maturity takes one to the non-dual consciousness. And it's not a philosophy, non-duality. You transcend all dualities. You have already gained the mastery of all opposites. It is a cosmic consciousness, the non-dual consciousness. So 90% or 99% of all seekers, they take it as something to be understood, realized, non-duality, which is not. It's a maturity of presence. This is important. I've written in my book quite a bit about this topic because it's a major misconception. And then there is awareness, realizing yourself as awareness. Now there are quite a few Western spiritual teachers famous about this topic. Saying that you are the self, you are the awareness, and keep contemplating the nature of awareness. So the identity shifts into I am the awareness. Beyond time, beyond space, beyond creation, beyond this whole universe, actually, because this universe, now touching of the divine cosmology, is Brahmanda universe. It is only one of many, many material cosmic universes, and they're all in the Karana ocean. And in the Krishna tradition, Krishna is swimming and impregnating these universes with life, Brahmanda universes. So awareness is Brahma Jyoti. In English, it means the effulgent light of Brahma. This is a blissful light of Brahman, the Lord. So the Brahma, there is Shiva, Vishnu, and Brahman, which are the trinity of Hindu. But then there is Lord Brahm, who is also known as Kal Niranjan. And he is the father of Shiva, Vishnu, and Brahma. And their mother is called Durga or Adya. So Lord Brahm and Adya have created all Brahmandas, which are material universes, and their three sons are Shiva, Vishnu, and Brahman. This is a very rare knowledge, very little known in Hinduism, and to the matter extent, very, very few spiritual teachers know this. Very, very few. So awareness is the consciousness of Lord Brahma. It's called Brahma Jyoti. And Krishna people have figured out that most of the non-dual teachers, they attain this state of consciousness, the awareness or the blissful consciousness of Lord Brahma, Brahma Jyoti. But a few spiritual traditions, only a few in the world, know that there are higher realms of existence beyond that. So beyond Brahmanda universes and beyond the awareness Brahma Jyoti, there are 700 quadrillion Par Brahmanda universes. And these universes are already pure, and they're without the negative force or duality in them. The laws are different. They're not like our universe. They're of totally different order. And their Lord or the Creator is Par Brahma. So he's the Lord of 700 quadrillion universes. And the Lord Brahm below of the dualistic universes, he manages only, in some traditions, they say there are 21 Brahmandas. Some traditions say there are a bit more, but it's not that many. So some of the gurus have realized their consciousness as Par Brahm or Param Shiva. which is the higher nature, which is not the cosmic Shiva, not the Shiva of this universe, but the Param Shiva is this is where is the height of Kashmir Shaivism. And so Kashmir Shaivism recognizes this higher nature of reality, one lineage. Adi Shankara, which is the grandfather of non-duality, Advaita Vedanta, of the, I think he was in the 8th century, way before Ramana Maharshi and, the current subsequent teachers in this tradition. Way before them, there was Adi Shankara, and he was teaching from the Par Brahmanda level. So there are some spiritual traditions, not many, who have access to this higher reality, higher truth. And beyond that, there is another great void. It's called Mahasunyata. You can see a whole chart on our website, Divine Marga. If you click on Soul and Divine Cosmology, you will see a full chart of these regions. So after this great void, then there are 6 truly absolute divine regions. And only few traditions, even less traditions known ever on earth, have reached that state of consciousness. These are very few, and this is from where we are coming from. This is where we are working from. And therefore, over the last 10 years, we have done an extensive research of the spiritual teachers and spiritual lineages to see from which domain they're teaching. And we have done this research, and on our website, we have a page called the Advancement of Spiritual Teachers. And we have a numerical scale to indicate how highly advanced these gurus are, because there are immense differences, for example, between a Western Zen philosopher, Alan Watts, and, as you mentioned, Neem Karoli Baba. There is an immense difference, an immense gap between them. So the same way there can be spiritual teachers speaking about the same thing, like the self, let's say Ramana Maharshi or Muji, for example, but these two beings, again, are of different order. So Ramana spoke from much higher place, deeper place. And we also visited his Samadhi ashram in Tiruvannamalai. And therefore, this is where we can come to realize that there are many enlightened teachers, but they're speaking from different places, and this is why their message is so different.
Who's the counselor? Where is the council? Who decides where someone lands on this scale of like more conscious?
Well, it's their own self, isn't it? It's their soul. So Buddha, he was extremely advanced being.
Yeah.
And he not only was extremely enlightened, but also he brought an extreme precision of cosmology, which is extremely rare, because some gurus, they awaken to high states of consciousness, but they can't explain things. So they take, 5-10 years sitting in samadhi and maturing, gathering, what this high consciousness is about. And only few, these wonderful enlightened beings, have more precision to know of these different realms and different order. I can point you. Go ahead.
No, sorry. Go ahead.
Well, I did want to say, so I did want to jump in. Like, so how is it documented? Is it like someone sitting in a state of samadhi and they come out of it, and then they have people with pens and paper, like, and they write it down? Like, how is a lot of this stuff, archived,
technified, like the technical
Yes.
cosmology. How is it
Uh-huh.
laid out?
Well, if we take one of the advanced spiritual lineages, uh, okay, maybe I'll point you to something very concrete that will resonate with the Westerners. You could read a book called Urantia Book. So this book is about 2,000 pages, and it goes into extreme detail about cosmology and the order of beings. This is a very special book. You can access it for free online. So this is one of the great sources that you can dive into. Then there is another very, very advanced path, which is the origins actually of this path, and this is what we are working with. It comes from the what we call him the very first Sat Guru in the world that the world has ever known, because he came in all four yugas to liberate the souls. He came in all four yugas. So before Krishna, before Rama, before these great Hindu myths and stories, he already was coming to liberate souls. Of course, before Jesus and Buddha, everybody else. So we work with that lineage, which is the Sant Kabir Das lineage. And from this lineage, originated, it is known that Sant Kabir Das has initiated Guru Nanak. And Guru Nanak is the founder of the Sikhism, the major world religion, Sikhism. Sikhism knows about Lord Brahma and his creation of dualistic universes, his three sons, Shiva, Vishnu, and Brahman. They know about Par-Brahmanda universes, and they know about the Sachkhand, Satlok, the divine region, the true eternal home where the souls are truly liberated. So Guru Nanak is the founder of this tradition. And Sikhism has a few more advanced branches which are not so religious. And these gurus said, let's take out the religious stuff and let's focus on the essence, how to liberate the souls. So this is a very sacred path that we work with as well. And this is where we bring the Shabd or Nam or the word, which we call the divine light and sound stream. And via this sacred Shabd, the divine light sound stream, is how the soul can traverse through all these great regions and finally reach the true divine home, the true origin. Because the creation is so vast and there are so many lights of consciousness which can seem like the source and there's nothing else, so many blissful places where yogis can spend decades being immersed in samadhi, and yet this is only halfway through to the true divine home.
When you say there's so many blissful places, there are those of us that struggle to find one blissful place. So, I don't know. Let me try to turn my little bit into a question. In the apparent hierarchy of all this, like it's like a scaling upwards hierarchy of sorts, you know, what are some things in terms of what attitude should you have? Is it like you shouldn't have an arrogant attitude? Is that true that you shouldn't be, that you should be submissive to the people that seem to be masters in the hierarchy? Should you be submissive? Should you be humble? Should you be questioning? And is there something, akin to like a Mario flute that transports you between levels, like so you can cheat and get there quicker? Do you ever encounter somebody that walks up and's like, I'm more blissful than even you. I should maybe be teaching you some stuff. Like, how do you keep it together with all this?
This is my first book that covers these topics.
Mm-hmm.
The major misconceptions, the shifts of identity, the spiritual ego, and people at some level, they like to judge others, they like to express their own truth, no matter if it hurts anybody else.
Mm-hmm.
This is all ego game. All of that is ego game. It's the ego show. When a person comes to some higher degree of true non-duality, and they open with the grace in one way or another to at least to awareness consciousness, which is still the blissful place of Lord Brahm, this is already very, very rare. There are only few, well, maybe less than 5,000 people on Earth who have attained that degree of enlightenment. So this is already very rare. You get to see those planes of existence when you get there. And when you get there, you see more clearly what is below, that this is different, that this was only that stage. It seemed very blissful. It's so easy to get the blissful glimpses of the initial samadhi because even in the common tantra tradition, the union of Shiva, Shakti, and all of it, gaining that bliss and so on. This is easy. This is still inner love, unity consciousness, and people, tens of millions of people, can easily experience that. But those higher degrees are attainable with proper guidance. For how can you cross the vast ocean, which is completely unknown, by yourself without a map, a guide, a GPS? So those people who assume that I will just follow my intuition and I'll, make it through, they can make through to these initial stages, inner love, unity, well, presence maybe, but still presence already requires a certain transmission to receive, to open into much vaster consciousness. So this happens via consciousness transmissions. And this is what we offer. It is in various traditions, call it in different names, but essentially it is a transmission from a teacher or a being who is already there, and thus they can transmit this higher consciousness and allow you to familiarize with what it is. So it's like a grace that lifts you up beyond your own efforts, because your own efforts can only take you as much. And so can somebody attain this by themselves? Yes, there are some examples. For example, Ramana Maharshi. He was very young, he was a teenage, and he had this great awakening, which is of the high degree. But there are not many people like that in the history, because these souls, like him and others, they already were enlightened in their previous lives. So this is why I said it's not new to me. This is just reawakening that I went through to catch up where I was already before, so that I can perform my duties and mission here on Earth to help others.
How do you feel about kind of like the idea of accelerated spiritual awakening? Where did you see
this is happening now? Yes.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that, because I'm curious about kind of technology and its aid. Like, even yourself, you have a website, you have books, you can spread your information, but say take something like Neuralink 50 years from now, being able to absorb mass amounts of information at an accelerated speed. Maybe there's a way, like, how do you feel about, because I know
that
people
can
get very
assist
protective
humanity.
about their spiritual tradition, and I'm not saying you, I'm just saying in general from what I've noticed,
Yeah,
people they're protective of kind of like their path, their way of doing it, their way of kind of figuring this stuff out. But are
yes,
we
yes.
okay? Are we okay with something new emerging on the scene that awakens
Oh,
people like quickly? What if tomorrow 10 million people got awakened? Would, what do you think
yes,
about that?
these tools, and we have done an extensive research of holistic technologies, various bioresonance devices, and PMF frequencies, and we are collaborating with the scientists in Malta as well, with all sorts of frequency modulations. So we've looked into this whole field of energetics and the devices that are available on the market, and they can assist you primarily with energetic level. So they can help you to clear your chakras, balance them. They can help you basically with 4D, 5D consciousness at most. And so, therefore, this mass awakening, which is happening now on Earth, tens of millions of people are awakening more and more. They're awakening to energetic universe, quantum universe level, and their energy bodies are awakening to match it, the 4D and 5D consciousness. So this is happening, yes, but
Fascinating.
4D, 5D consciousness is only the bottom line of this universe.
It's a long way to go.
It's a bottom line of this universe. I mean, 3D is a total bottom line. It's very rare to have a civilization in this universe which is suppressed so much as humanity in all control mechanisms. But let's say if that wasn't the case, or maybe in the next 10, 20, 50 years, that will be resolved. So humanity will become more conscious, 4D, 5D consciousness beings, which is the majority of universe, and that is the bottom line of the most of this universe.
Wow. Okay. I'm waiting to ask a question because I'm stuck several comments back. I'm rattling around in my mind. I think I thought about what you said there about, it's very easy to have the initial experience. You mentioned something about it being easy to get some kind of initial experience. And so I'm going to do a bit of a smattering. I apologize. This is just the ADHD way I try to communicate, okay? It's one thing to say it's easy to have these initial experiences. I want to separate the crap from the shinola, like the is truth and honesty. First of all, how do you separate truth from honesty? Because there's a subtle differentiation there. You mentioned people that will, they're so want to express themselves that they don't care if they hurt people. That's coming from a desperate place, because that's my wheelhouse, is offending people, just trying to express myself. And that's because I care about the truth. Isn't truth most important? Because if I wanted to, it's a little cringy, but I could enter into a bit of a state at any moment. I could settle my nerves down. I might picture some nice imagery in my mind, and then I could run away with that. If I really thought, but it's not the truth, because I'll come face to face with a world that, like I said earlier, hasn't even had one blissful experience. We're all susceptible to this. I do this when somebody's talking about something too complicated. Sometimes I'll nod as if I know. But the truth is, between you and me, even, how often is the truth of it that you're really, the authority on talking about how to lead people to something? Like, I'm literally just interested in the truth of this. So yes. From that place, I do feel like I got to express it, because there might be somebody out there going, he didn't answer the question of whether he gets angry at the airport or not. You know what I mean? Like, do you ever get angry? And then on top of that, because it's a fair question, on top of that, if it is a matter of it's easy to have those initial things, some of us just want to know how to have the initial things. So maybe a practical advice about how to start getting to the first place where we start opening up these things that lead us to spirituality. I
That's
apologize
why.
for my brazenness, but that's what I do.
No,
That's my thing.
that's totally fine. So that we have a very large amount of people who have this initial awakening. We have what is called daily practices, specifically designed in a very efficient way how to get this awakening experience. So we have a free content about high vibrational health, how to prepare this vessel for awakening. Daily practices include pranayamas, 5 Tibetan rites, certain meditations to get you opened up. And there are thousands of people who succeeded in this very fast highway to get to this awakening. Now, your second question about the truth. Now, what is the truth? What is the truth to you? And what is the truth to your partner sitting right here? And what is the truth to somebody who is unawakened, but yet they have a sense in their heart of truth? And what is the truth to somebody who has done 20, 30 years of meditation? So truth is something which is quite individual. And we prefer compassion. We prefer love.
To truth?
In our community, yes. Compassion, love, and truth with a mutual understanding. If we can be on the
honesty
same...
play too? And
yes, like, so
how does
that's
honesty play into that? How are we supposed to understand each other without honesty?
Yes. So when you understand the levels of consciousness, you will see that these people are trying to communicate from very different places, and they're all honest and truthful. But it's like a Chinese trying to speak with the American, or Korean with the Japanese, or Russian with the South African. You know, they all have their truth and they all have their honesty. But that's why levels of consciousness explains how one perceives the truth. What is the truth to them at that stage of awakening? To make it even more complex, Enneagram is a wonderful system because it covers the 9 levels of personality, and all of these different personalities have their truth, which fully resonates deep in their heart. And these 9 different personality types have 9 levels of development until you reach the liberated personality, which is very rare. Once you reach the liberated personality, you transcend all these dualistic emotions, such as anger. So now I'm going to answer your long forgotten question.
Transcend it? You transcend the capacity to feel angry?
Yes, because why you are angry? Because you don't understand something. This is why a person gets angry, if they don't understand something. This is Buddha's words. You know, when somebody came very angry at Buddha and he even spitted at his face, Buddha said, I am sorry for you because you don't understand. So anger arises from not understanding what is behind the anger. It's a good practice. We call it the emotional inquiry, to ask yourself, what am I feeling now? Can I allow this feeling to be here? And can I be with this feeling more space around it? And this way, over time, with practice, you will receive your inner wisdom for these surfacing emotions, such as injustice or anger.
I still find a use for anger. Like there's a couple of things because I want to give you a big compliment in a sec. I still find a use for anger, and I find that it's prevalent. I find that whether it's overt, because a large part of the world's at war and battling, and then there's a lot of it that's sort of suppressed. You can talk to somebody that's conveying one thing, but it's like I detect anger under there. To me, it's obvious. I wear it on I look angry a lot of the time. But I don't mind it that bad because I find a use in it. Adrenaline is not like a useless chemical that I produce in my body. So it's interesting to me, the idea of transcending it. Because before we even started, I was curious, how would he answer that? That I no longer have the capacity to feel angry, and I'm not trying to be insulting. I just care about the truth. Versus I choose not to display anger anymore. And then I want to say this. When you're speaking about the higher order things, and I can look right into your eyes, I feel like I could get ascended with you when you talk about these things. And I imagine it's probably double, maybe triple, quadruple in your actual presence, that you could take people up with you to those things. And it's beautiful. And in some ways I want to cover the hard stuff so that we can actually genuinely and authentically get to a place as people where we mean it when humans get together and we're sitting in bliss and there's lots of hugging and peace. But people got to do their due diligence to cut out all the sort of things that seem like I'm just being a wet blanket. Like, why do you keep going there, Justin? It's like because there's questions. We're skeptical minds, correct? And so, but I just wanted to say you do have a capacity to raise the emotions into a good place.
In one of my satsangs many years ago, there came a Malta Skeptic Association founder, and he had a beautiful awakening there. So then he was following me for the last 10 years or so. So now coming back to this, yes, there's a lot of injustice in the world. That's clear. A lot of wars, a lot of injustice. The whole system is crude and it's crumbling. It's crumbling now in front of our faces, which is a great awakening for everybody. Because since 2017, nobody trusts mainstream media anymore. I've witnessed all these steps of the collective consciousness awakenings. So that's for sure. In my book, the first book that I released, this is where I get into the spiritual misconceptions, spiritual delusions, and hardcore truths. So I've covered these topics. Last week, I gave a satsang about how to manifest things actually in physical life and not on a spiritual cloud. Because sometimes when people awaken spiritually, they sit on a cloud and they expect that Goddess Lakshmi will bring them everything. And they don't have to do anything anymore to be responsible with their families, to be responsible in society. So these topics we cover quite well. And now more personally to you, why you like, let's say, sometimes a bit of anger and sometimes to shake things up? Because you are Enneagram type 8, which is a challenger. You like to challenge things. And therefore, you like to get to that core truth, to the honesty, roses around, and you
it's
like to
a little paradoxical at times because I'll be like, can't we just all hug and get along? It's like, dude, nobody wants to hug you when you're making an angry face. And I admire the nature that you have. To be honest, I really do, and I see it displayed all through history. The masters are often, they don't look like me. I look like the demon. I look like the guy that's got like, but I admire it, and I just want it to be real.
Yeah. It's common to be a challenger type. Sure. There are some spiritual teachers who are also like with this personality type to challenge the current systems, the current setups, the well, Kabir, in his last descent on earth, he challenged the whole Brahman tradition of Hindus and Muslim tradition. This was in the 15th century, and they tried to suppress him and kill him many times, get rid of him. But he was very critical of the caste system of Brahmins and the Muslim approach as well. And only recently, we may say, Sai Baba of Shirdi and then Satya Sai Baba, he was uniting the brothers of, because in India there is always that difficulty of the Hindus and Muslims. And Sai Baba of Shirdi was the big one who really was of both. And he brought them together in many ways.
When it comes to ascended masters, who alive on earth right now would you consider, like, could you name a few that you think are like right now alive that are like, if you're going to listen to someone, you'll listen to this? And maybe that's yourself. I don't know.
Yes, ascended masters. Now, there are many ascended masters, first of all. Ascended master is this being who can, there are those who have ascended their physical vehicle of consciousness, or those who have ascended within and attained the same degree of consciousness, but they still have a physical body. Now, one of the most famous ascended master with which I have a very dear connection is the Saint Germain. And Saint Germain is one of the Chohans. There are 7 Chohans who are let's say, the CEOs of ascended masters. They're the CEOs or the directors for each of the different rays. So these 7 Chohans are at the top line, we may say. They have a greatest degree of mastery. And they are also overseen by a Maha Chohan, interestingly, who lived in his previous life just 10 minutes away from our home on the island of Gozo in Maltese Islands. So the Ascended Master is one of the most prevalent one in the East is the Kuan Yin, and there are great statues of Kuan Yin all over Asia, in China, in Thailand, and many different other countries. They're the biggest statues in the world of Kuan Yin. She is also known as a bodhisattva and also as a goddess of love and compassion.
Is she alive right now?
Well, she can take a physical form, but that's not what she usually prefers to be in. The same way. Now in India, it's the best known being like this is Mahavatar Babaji, who instructed Lahiri Mahasaya, and then Yukteswar Giri, and then Paramahamsa Yogananda of Kriya Yoga. So Mahavatar Babaji was actually physically born, if I remember correctly, the 2nd century AD. We have an article on our website about his story of ascension. And he met his guru in India, and he received the instructions. He went to Himalayas, and that's where he ascended. And then nearly 2,000 years later, he came back and instructed Kriya Yoga tradition. So he is called Maha Avatar, the great avatar. That's the best known being in India. And in the West, the best known ascended master is Ascended Master Saint Germain. There are many accounts in Europe and France. In a bit before that, in England, he was known as Merlin, the great magician.
Oh,
Then he
snap.
was known,
Huh?
yes, then he was known as Shakespeare because he wrote all those books. And in other life, he was known as Saint Germain by his own name. And he was with the royalties of Europe, trying to guide them in the right direction at a very pivotal time in the history of Europe. And then he came back also and helped to establish the American Constitution. There are stories how he appeared, he instructed,
Whoa.
and he supported the establishment of United States of America. And United States of America is one of his biggest projects till now, uh, because this is where uh, the beginnings of the new Atlantis or the new golden age are emerging through very murky waters like right now. So looking a bit into the bigger, larger spectrum of history, it is due to the grace of Saint Germain that Columbus found America. And there is a whole story about that. And actually, if you Google well, you can find the precise drawing of Saint Germain and Jesus side by side of one of the greatest of one of this drawing was made by a royal portraitist, or how do you call this person who makes portraits for the royals? So he was of a very honorable position in Europe, and he had persistent visions to paint Saint Germain and Jesus. Night over night, he saw precise features of their faces. And these visions didn't go away until he started painting it. And when he finished, the visions came back to him and asked him to correct the mustache and the lips. It had to be so precise. And these are the most precise drawings of Saint Germain and Jesus side by side.
Gonna have to Google that.
Yeah,
together. 100%. I just want to say one thing. You have already shared with us so much wisdom, and we thank you for that and the teachings. And it seems like we're going to have to get your book for some of the more in-depth stuff, which we'll put a link to and we'll give you a chance to talk about. But for those just tuning in and just need a taste of something, is there something that you can give the audience and us a glimpse of something that they could do when this is all done? Just a good practice to kind of open ourselves up to the transcendent things. Start pushing us in that direction. Is there maybe a practice or a thought to have or something?
Well, we do have a lot of videos on YouTube, and I would invite you to simply listen to one of my satsangs videos on YouTube. There are some meditations as well, and just feel into your third eye. Just close your eyes and feel into the third eye center. Maybe you want to try it right now, all of you. Just take a few moments to center into your breath. And to center, we call it your personal column of light. And if you take a few moments to picture that there's this beautiful column of light which comes down from above, surrounds your whole body, and this is where your breath, your chakras, and your spine is. So this is step number one. It's centering. This is how we begin the meditations. And the second step is to focus at the point between your eyebrows and to pull your attention upwards, to withdraw your attention away from all thoughts and your senses, so that you're fully concentrated at the point between the eyebrows. This is where you can try to feel into my presence. I bring love and blessings to all of you. This is the entrance to the inner higher realms. This is where I bring the divine light and sound stream like a great river of love, light, and bliss that descends from above through each of the planes, all the heavens. And Jesus called it the ladder to heaven. Many saints called it the, the silent sound that they follow. So it's like a stream, like a river that descends from above all the way down and surrounds you fully. And from here on, you can relax your attention from the third eye center and merge into this river, divine light and sound stream. This is how we travel upwards or deeper within. If you focus on your heart center, you may experience love, which has a beautiful pink energy light to it. And I invite Goddess Kuan Yin to bring the loving pink light to your heart. For those who are more accustomed to meditation, who follow perhaps non-dual path, there are many, many steps above into your beingness, the silent existence, the light of awareness, the vastness of the truth and existence of Par Brahmanda, and all the way up into the true divine home, where the soul becomes truly liberated from all karma and all the intermediary sources of light. This is a little preview, like a trailer, what is above. And very lovingly, we can come back to the heart center. We can see it as a flower, lotus flower, blossoming. And with gratitude to your guides and to your own self for your own efforts that you make on this path. We may lovingly come back to our breath and to recenter here and now. Slowly coming back from this little meditation.
Yeah, very powerful stuff. Obviously paired with the odd intrusive thought of like, wait a sec, you're on camera right now, and hoping that it's effective. But 100%, yeah, very powerful stuff.
I only have like one major question left for you. I was just, after going through that, curious about kind of your thoughts about 2025 as we're going into a new year. Do you have any thoughts about the state of the world, where we're going, what 2025 is going to be like? Any predictions?
Very important year is waiting for us at many, many levels. Many sources are pointing that this year will be a pivotal shift into some kind of great opening. And from there on, it's not going to be easy, but in the next 10 years, we are scheduled by the higher order of light, ascended masters, and all that is related to this. We're scheduled to begin in becoming a galactic civilization. And that's why we're witnessing opening of space technologies, new energy generation systems, and realizing that the current governance model is no longer working well for many nations around the world. So it's going to be a bumpy ride, yes. There are major conflicts still unfolding that hopefully will subside next year. And step by step, it will prepare humanity for opening their eyes beyond the beautiful blue dome and what is awaiting us there, because there's a lot of abundance. And when we will stop fighting with each other, we can direct our efforts to the abundance waiting out there for us. And the sky is not the limit.
Yeah. Very exciting. Probably very exciting for a lot of people.
Yeah. Well, Sat Mindo, I want to thank you so much for being on the show. This has been great. Thank you so much for being on here. I thought maybe before we go, you could let our audience know where they can find you, what you got going on, and all that good stuff.
Yes, so you can visit our website, divinemarga.com. This is our organization led by me and my beloved partner, Leon Premananda. We have walked this beautiful path together and created this beautiful organization. And we have a non-profit organizations as well. And my first book is called Enlightened, Authentic Self. So it covers a lot of these topics of today in great detail. And my second book coming out in February is called Soul Liberation and Divine Cosmology, which will dive into these higher aspects of the whole existence and what does it really mean to liberate the soul. These are some of the key pointers there. So we have a lot of offerings. We have 3 YouTube channels actually with hundreds of videos on each. There is so much that you can discover and start exploring. And we are here to support everyone. We even have a meditation and spiritual life coaching teacher training course for those who are serious to help others. So we have trained a lot of people to become meditation teachers and coaches. And some of them have their own communities now. They're giving transmissions and helping many people in different parts of the world. So we're here for you and to support your awakening and to give you all the clarity on the path. And we embrace different traditions, different paths, because we recognize there's no one way as such. There are at different stages on your path, you need different things. And that's why then you can move forward when you do something else, not the same thing that you've been doing for 5 years already. So we
Christ
recognize
even said, "A kingdom divided against itself, it can't stand." You mentioned Jesus, and Jesus himself said, when they accused him, he said, "A kingdom can't be divided. If I'm for you, if somebody's for me, how can they be against me?" So.
Yes. So I'm really happy to be here with all of you, and I'm very happy to meet you two in person. It's been a beautiful conversation.
Yeah, thank you so much for your patience and your wise words.